My topic is congestion pricing in detail explain, and let's go to the topic and let's go to the start. Congestion pricing is a transportation policy that involves charging fees or tolls for vehicles entering certain areas during peak hours or congested times. The primary goal of congestion pricing is to reduce traffic congestion, encourage the use of public transportation, and promote alternative modes of transportation. The concept of congestion pricing is based on the idea that when the cost of driving during congested periods increases, some drivers will choose to travel at different times, carpool, or use public transportation instead. By reducing the number of vehicles on the road during peak hours, congestion can be alleviated, resulting in smoother traffic flow, reduced travel times, and improved air quality. Congestion pricing systems can vary in their implementation. Some cities use electronic tolling systems, where vehicles are equipped with transponders or license plate recognition technology to track their entry and exit from the congestion zone. Fees are then automatically deducted from prepaid accounts or billed to drivers based on their usage. The revenue generated from congestion pricing can be reinvested in transportation infrastructure improvements, such as expanding public transit systems, building bike lanes, or improving pedestrian facilities. This helps create a more sustainable and efficient transportation system while providing alternative options for commuters. Congestion pricing has been implemented in various cities around the world, including London, Singapore, Stockholm, and several cities in the United States. While it has proven effective in reducing congestion and promoting sustainable transportation, its implementation often faces challenges and requires careful planning, public engagement, and consideration of equity concerns to ensure that low-income communities are not disproportionately burdened by the fees. The term congestion pricing refers to a dynamic pricing strategy designed to regulate demand by increasing prices without increasing supply. The strategy, which is based on the economic theory of pricing, is a common ploy in the transportation industry, where it aims to decrease congestion and air pollution by charging more for entering especially congested areas of a major metropolitan city. Congestion pricing is also used in the hospitality industry and by the utilities sector, in which demand varies depending on the time of day or season of the year. Electricity rates may be higher in warmer months because of air conditioning, while hotel rooms may be more expensive during major holidays. Congestion pricing generally imposes price increases for services that are subject to temporary or cyclic increases in demand. It is a common strategy in the transportation, tourism, hospitality, and utility industries. Congestion pricing includes demand or surge pricing, segmented pricing, and peak user pricing. The idea behind congestion pricing is that consumers will use and waste more of a free or negligibly priced resource than an expensive one. Congestion pricing may increase revenues, but the associated costs could be high. Congestion pricing, sometimes called valet pricing, is a way of harnessing the power of the market to reduce the waste associated with traffic congestion. Congestion pricing works by shifting some rush-hour highway travel to other transportation modes or to off-peak periods, taking advantage of the fact that the majority of rush-hour drivers on a typical urban highway are not commuters. By removing a fraction, even as small as 5%, of the vehicles from a congested roadway, pricing enables the system to flow much more efficiently, allowing more cars to move through the same physical space. Similar variable charges have been successfully utilized in other industries, for example, airline tickets, cell phone rates, and electricity rates. There is a consensus among economists that congestion pricing represents the single most viable and sustainable approach to reducing traffic congestion. Congestion pricing is a strategy used to reduce traffic congestion in urban areas by charging drivers a fee to enter certain congested zones during peak hours. The goal of congestion pricing is to encourage drivers to consider alternative modes of transportation, such as public transit or carpooling, or to shift their travel to less congested times of day. Congestion pricing typically involves the use of electronic tolling systems that charge drivers a fee based on the time of day and location they enter the congested area. The fee is often higher during peak hours and lower during off-peak hours. Congestion pricing has been implemented in cities around the world, including London, Singapore, and Stockholm, and has been shown to be an effective tool for reducing traffic congestion and improving air quality. However, it is also a controversial policy, as some argue that it places an unfair burden on low-income drivers who may have no choice but to drive during peak hours. At its most fundamental level, highway congestion is caused by the lack of a mechanism to efficiently manage use of capacity. When searching for a solution to the congestion problem, most people immediately think of adding a new lane to an overburdened highway. Construction costs for adding lanes in urban areas average $10 million per lane mile. Generally, the funding for this construction comes from the tax that drivers pay when buying gas for their vehicles. Overall, funds generated from gas taxes on an added lane during rush hours amount to only $60,000 per year. This amount is grossly insufficient to pay for the lane addition. The bargain price paid by motorists for use of expensive new capacity encourages more drivers to use the expanded highway. Introducing congestion pricing on highway facilities discourages overuse during rush hours by motivating people to travel by other modes such as carpools or transit, or by traveling at other times of the day. Public acceptance. Although drivers unfamiliar with the concept initially have questions and concerns, surveys show that drivers more experienced with congestion pricing support it because it offers them a reliable trip time, which is very valuable especially when they need to be somewhere on time. Transit and ride-sharing advocates appreciate the ability of congestion pricing to generate both funding and incentives to make transit and ride-sharing more attractive. Vehicle throughput on a freeway is the number of vehicles that get through over a short period, such as an hour. Once freeway traffic exceeds a certain threshold level, both vehicle speed and vehicle throughput drop precipitously. Data show that maximum vehicle throughput occurs at free-flow speeds ranging from 45 miles per hour to 65 miles per hour. The number of vehicles that get through per hour can drop by as much as 50% when severe congestion sets in. At high traffic levels, the freeway is kept in this condition of collapse for several hours after the rush of commuters has stopped. This causes further unnecessary delay for off-peak motorists who arrive after rush hour. With peak period highway pricing, a variable toll dissuades some motorists from entering freeways at those access points where traffic demand is high, and where such surges in demand may push the freeway over the critical threshold at which traffic flow collapses. Pricing prevents a breakdown of traffic flow in the first instance, and thus maintains a high level of vehicle throughput throughout the rush hours. Each variably priced lane in the median of State Route 91 in Orange County, California, carries twice as many vehicles per lane as the free lanes during the hour with heaviest traffic. Pricing has allowed twice as many vehicles to be served per lane at 3 to 4 times the speed on the free lanes. Technology for congestion pricing. With congestion pricing, tolls typically vary by time of day and are collected at highway speeds using electronic toll collection technology. Traffic flows freely and there are no toll booths. Vehicles are equipped with electronic devices called transponders or tags, which are read by overhead antennas. Toll rates for different time periods may be set in advance, or they may be set dynamically, that is, they may be increased or decreased every few minutes to ensure that the lanes are fully utilized without a breakdown in traffic flow. Tags range from simple to highly sophisticated devices. Simple tags are read-only, meaning that they can provide an identification number to overhead readers using power from incoming radio frequency energy. More sophisticated tags are battery-powered, and have processing power and memory. Tags are now the normal way tolls are collected from regular users. 70 to 80% of tolls are now collected this way on most urban commuter toll roads in peak hours. Simple sticker tags may be obtained for less than $10. Global Positioning Systems, GPS, are used to collect truck tolls in Germany on the autobahns. In tests of such systems in the United States, an in-vehicle device records charges incurred based on its location as identified by the GPS unit in the vehicle. All location and payment information remains in the vehicle, and the vehicle owner periodically uploads the summary of charges to a processing center along with payments. The costs of such systems are currently high, as much as $500 per vehicle in Germany. Their high costs can be justified by additional services provided by the systems, such as in-vehicle navigation and commercial fleet management. Also, the need for roadside equipment for toll collection is reduced. Cameras are an essential complement to tags and GPS units to gain a record of the identity of vehicles that don't have a working tag or GPS unit. Cameras can be used to deter toll violators. This is known as video enforcement. In cases where a tag is required for use of a facility, Camera images allow a follow-up of violation. Congestion pricing is a transportation policy that involves charging a fee for vehicles entering certain congested areas or using specific roadways during peak hours. The primary goal of congestion pricing is to reduce traffic congestion and improve the overall efficiency of transportation systems in urban areas. The concept of congestion pricing is based on the economic principle of supply and demand. By implementing a fee for driving in congested areas, the aim is to reduce the number of vehicles on the road or encourage drivers to shift their travel times or modes of transportation. This can lead to several benefits, including reduced traffic congestion, improved air quality, enhanced public transportation, and increased revenue for transportation infrastructure improvements. Congestion pricing can be implemented in different ways, depending on the specific goals and circumstances of a city or region. Some common approaches include zone-based pricing. This involves setting up specific zones or areas where the pricing policy is applied. Vehicles entering these zones during peak hours are charged a fee. London's congestion charging scheme is an example of zone-based pricing. Cordon-based pricing. In this approach, a cordon or boundary is established around a congested area, and vehicles crossing that boundary during peak hours are subject to a charge. Stockholm's congestion pricing system is an example of cordon-based pricing. Time of day pricing. Under this method, the fees vary based on the time of day. Higher charges are typically applied during peak hours to discourage driving during congested periods. Distance-based pricing. This approach involves charging vehicles based on the distance they travel within congested areas or on specific roadways. Singapore's electronic road pricing (ERP) system utilizes distance-based pricing. Congestion pricing has been implemented in various cities worldwide, including London, Stockholm, Singapore, and Milan. The effectiveness of congestion pricing in achieving its intended goals depends on various factors such as the design of the pricing scheme, public acceptance, availability of alternative transportation options, and complementary policies such as investments in public transit. While congestion pricing can be effective in reducing traffic congestion and improving urban mobility, it often generates debates and concerns related to equity, affordability, and potential impacts on low-income communities. It's important for policymakers to consider these factors and implement congestion pricing measures in a way that addresses these concerns while still achieving the desired outcomes. Use of a toll facility may be permitted without a tag or GPS unit. In this case, a camera-based system is used to collect what is termed a video toll. This toll includes the additional costs for administration. Cameras are being improved steadily in their capabilities, and some believe that very soon toll operators could rely entirely on video tolling. Congestion pricing can generate substantial revenues from tolls. A portion of the revenues generated will be needed to operate the toll collection and traffic management systems. Net revenues after payment of operating costs can be used to pay for expansion of roadway facilities, to support alternatives to driving alone such as public transit, to address impacts on low-income individuals by providing toll discounts or credits, or to reduce other taxes that motorists pay for highways such as fuel taxes, vehicle registration fees, or sales taxes. Congestion pricing, sometimes called valet pricing, is a way of harnessing the power of the market to reduce the waste associated with traffic congestion. Congestion pricing works by shifting purely discretionary rush-hour highway travel to other transportation modes or to off-peak periods, taking advantage of the fact that the majority of rush-hour drivers on a typical urban highway are not commuters. By removing a fraction, even as small as 5%, of the vehicles from a congested roadway, pricing enables the system to flow much more efficiently, allowing more cars to move through the same physical space. Similar variable charges have been successfully utilized in other industries, for example, airline tickets, cell phone rates, and electricity rates. There is a consensus among economists that congestion pricing represents the single most viable and sustainable approach to reducing traffic congestion. Although drivers unfamiliar with the concept initially have questions and concerns, surveys show that drivers more experienced with congestion pricing support it because it offers them a reliable trip time, which is very valuable especially when they have to be somewhere on time. Transit and ride-sharing advocates appreciate the ability of congestion pricing to generate both funding and incentives to make transit and ride-sharing more attractive. Congestion pricing is a mechanism used to manage traffic congestion in urban areas by charging fees for driving during peak hours or in certain congested zones. The main goal of congestion pricing is to reduce traffic congestion, improve air quality, and promote the use of alternative modes of transportation. Here's how congestion pricing typically works. Fee structure. Congestion pricing involves charging drivers a fee for entering specific areas or driving during peak hours. The fees can vary depending on the time of day, location, and vehicle type. Higher fees are usually implemented during periods of high traffic congestion. Electronic systems. To implement congestion pricing effectively, electronic tolling systems are commonly used. These systems utilize technologies such as electronic toll collection, etc., automatic license plate recognition, ALPR, or GPS tracking to identify and charge vehicles. Congestion zone designation. Cities implementing congestion pricing often designate specific zones or areas where the fees apply. These areas are typically heavily congested city centers or other high-traffic locations. Access to these zones may be restricted to vehicles that have paid the congestion charge. Exemptions and discounts. Some cities provide exemptions or discounts for certain vehicles, such as electric or hybrid vehicles, low-income individuals, or residents within the congestion zone. These measures aim to encourage the use of cleaner vehicles or provide relief to those who rely on driving for essential reasons. Revenue allocation. The revenue generated from congestion pricing is typically reinvested into transportation infrastructure, public transit systems, or other initiatives aimed at improving urban mobility and reducing congestion. Congestion pricing has been implemented in various cities worldwide, including London, Singapore, Stockholm, and Milan. These cities have experienced varying degrees of success in reducing traffic congestion and improving transportation efficiency. However, the implementation of congestion pricing often faces challenges and requires careful planning, public acceptance, and consideration of potential equity issues. Think of it like any bridge or tunnel toll. Without the river, the idea, you charge people money to drive in certain places. That fee, in theory, discourages some drivers from getting on the road, potentially reducing overall traffic. A primer from the U.S. Department of Transportation calls the pricing scheme a way of harnessing the power of the market to reduce the waste associated with traffic congestion. Congestion pricing or congestion charges is a system of surcharging users of public goods that are subject to congestion through excess demand, such as through higher peak charges for use of bus services, electricity, metros, railways, telephones, and road pricing to reduce traffic congestion. Airlines and shipping companies may be charged higher fees for slots at airports and through canals at busy times. Advocates claim this pricing strategy regulates demand, making it possible to manage congestion without increasing supply. According to the economic theory behind congestion pricing, the objective of this policy is the use of the price mechanism to make users conscious of the costs that they impose upon one another when consuming during the peak demand, and that they should pay for the additional congestion they create, thus encouraging the redistribution of the demand in space or in time, and forcing them to pay for the negative externalities they create, making users more aware of their impact on the environment. Congestion pricing refers to a system where charges or fees are imposed on vehicles for entering certain congested areas during peak hours. The primary goal of congestion pricing is to reduce traffic congestion and improve air quality in heavily populated urban areas. The concept behind congestion pricing is to create financial incentives for drivers to change their travel behavior. By charging higher fees during peak hours or in congested zones, the aim is to encourage people to use alternative transportation options such as public transit, carpooling, or cycling, or to travel during off-peak hours. The fees collected from congestion pricing can be reinvested in transportation infrastructure, public transit improvements, or other initiatives to alleviate congestion. Congestion pricing has been implemented in various cities around the world. For example, London has a congestion charge where drivers have to pay a fee to enter the city centre during weekdays. Stockholm, Singapore, and Milan are among other cities that have successfully implemented congestion pricing schemes. Proponents of congestion pricing argue that it helps reduce traffic congestion, decrease travel times, and improve air quality by discouraging unnecessary car trips. It can also generate revenue for transportation improvements. However, critics often express concerns about the potential impact on low-income individuals to manage congestion on the congestion pricing raises the cost of driving on certain roadways at certain times, reducing traffic, encouraging alternate transportation modes, and generating revenue from the use of infrastructure. Viewed by some as one of the most effective ways to reduce traffic congestion, congestion pricing uses market forces to discourage driving at peak hours by charging a fee for driving on certain lanes or roadways. According to the Federal Highway Administration, a reduction in traffic volume of as little as 5% can have a significant impact on traffic flow, improving vehicle throughput and speed. Congestion pricing is designed to make alternate forms of transportation, such as public transit and ride-sharing, more attractive. Congestion pricing can take several forms. The most common are variably priced lanes, such as carpool lanes, high-occupancy toll (HOT) lanes, express lanes, and variable tolls placed on entire roadways or bridges during rush hours. Toll amounts frequently vary based on demand, with higher tolls charged at busier times. On San Diego's Interstate 15 hot lanes, pricing fluctuates between 50 cents and $8. Like other toll road systems, some congestion pricing programs use electronic toll collection technology to monitor vehicles and assess fees. Hot lanes let high-occupancy vehicles, usually private vehicles carrying more than one person, buses, and other transit vehicles, travel in the lanes for free, while non-HOVs must pay a toll. This type of scheme encourages carpooling and transit use and helps reduce congestion on non-hot lanes. Similarly, express lanes require all vehicles using them to pay a toll, making enforcement easier on local agencies. Another form of congestion pricing used in major cities including London, Stockholm, and Singapore is cordon pricing, which imposes a toll on all private vehicles entering designated areas of the city in an effort to reduce the number of cars driving into busy central business districts, where public transit should be more available. Singapore first introduced its policy in 1975. Using a simple system of window stickers to charge drivers entering the central city at busy hours of the day. London, which implemented a cordon pricing scheme in 2003, saw congestion drop by 30% in the year after starting the program. However, congestion in that city has slowly returned to pre-cordon pricing levels as demand increases for delivery and rideshare services, signaling a need for further adjustments. Some critics argue that fixed congestion pricing is regressive, harming low-income residents who often live far from their jobs in transit-poor peripheral areas and rely on automobiles to access jobs and other essential services. Yet research shows this isn't always the case. In New York City, a study found that just 4% of commuters from the city's outer boroughs drove to work, and of those, none were low-income. Supporters claim that the revenue raised by congestion pricing funds public transit upgrades and other infrastructure improvements that benefit everyone. Congestion pricing refers to a system where charges or fees are imposed on vehicles for entering certain congested areas during peak hours. The primary goal of congestion pricing is to reduce traffic congestion and improve air quality in heavily populated urban areas. The concept behind congestion pricing is to create financial incentives for drivers to change their travel behavior. By charging higher fees during peak hours or in congested zones, the aim is to encourage people to use alternative transportation options such as public transit, carpooling, or cycling, or to travel during off-peak hours. The fees collected from congestion pricing can be reinvested in transportation infrastructure, public transit improvements, or other initiatives to alleviate congestion. Congestion pricing has been implemented in various cities around the world. For example, London has a congestion charge where drivers have to pay a fee to enter the city centre during weekdays. Stockholm, Singapore, and Milan are among other cities that have successfully implemented congestion pricing schemes. Proponents of congestion pricing argue that it helps reduce traffic congestion, decrease travel times, and improve air quality by discouraging unnecessary car trips. It can also generate revenue for transportation improvements. However, critics often express concerns about the potential impact on low-income individuals who may rely on cars for transportation and may face financial burdens due to the additional charges. It's worth noting that the implementation of congestion pricing can vary depending on the specific city or region. Different areas may have different pricing structures, exemptions, and enforcement mechanisms. Charging roadway users generates revenue that supplements road maintenance, toll operating costs, public transit improvements, and other transportation infrastructure. Hot lanes have also been shown to reduce air pollution and improve local air quality by facilitating a smoother flow of traffic. In one example, Seattle saw a 16% increase in transit ridership in the year after implementing hot lanes. Revenue from congestion tolls can also offset the loss of fuel tax revenue precipitated by increased use of electric cars and more efficient vehicles. In the United States, proponents of congestion pricing have struggled to get such programs off the ground. As of this writing, New York City is poised to launch a congestion pricing program in Manhattan that would generate as much as $1.1 billion for the city's transit services. Los Angeles, Chicago, and Washington, D.C. have also taken steps toward similar programs. While HOV lanes operate in 20 states, hot lane projects are operational in just 8 of them. Congestion pricing, also called surge or valet pricing, adds a surcharge for services that are subject to temporary or cyclic increases in demand. It's meant to encourage users who can be flexible with their usage to shift away from peak periods to times when the service or resource is less expensive. As mentioned above, it is commonly used as a way to curb traffic to reduce congestion on the road and improve air quality. The travel and tourism industry also uses this form of pricing during times of peak travel. Utility companies charge a higher rate for usage at peak times as well. The goal is to regulate excess demand by applying higher prices during peak demand cycles. For example, car services increase their rates on New Year's Eve because of the high demand for rides. Hotels raise room rates during conventions, major holidays, or special events. Electricity rates may be greater in the summer because of increased air conditioner usage. Nobel laureate economist William Vickrey first proposed adding a distance or time-based fare system to manage congestion on the New York City subway in 1952, though it was not adopted, in part due to inadequate technology. This is why Vickrey is considered to be the father of congestion pricing. Maurice Allais, another Nobel Prize-winning economist, elaborated on congestion pricing theory to manage traffic congestion. He was instrumental in designing the first road pricing system, the Singapore Area Licensing Scheme, implemented in 1975. Congestion pricing is a strategy implemented by some cities to reduce traffic congestion and improve air quality by charging fees for vehicles entering certain high-traffic areas during peak hours. The concept is based on the idea that by increasing the cost of driving in congested areas, people will be incentivized to use alternative modes of transportation or travel at different times, ultimately reducing traffic congestion and its associated problems. Here's how congestion pricing typically works. Designated zone. A specific area or zone within a city is identified where traffic congestion is a significant issue. This area is usually a central business district or other high-traffic region. Fees/tolls. Vehicles entering the designated zone during peak hours are required to pay a fee or toll. The fees can vary based on factors such as the time of day, day of the week, vehicle type, and emission levels. The purpose is to discourage unnecessary trips and promote more efficient use of the road network. Electronic systems. Congestion pricing systems often utilize electronic toll collection methods, such as electronic tags or license plate recognition. These systems automatically identify vehicles entering the designated zone and deduct the appropriate fee from the driver's account or send a bill to the vehicle owner. Exemptions and discounts. Some congestion pricing schemes provide exemptions or discounts for certain types of vehicles, such as electric or hybrid vehicles, or for specific groups, such as residents or low-income individuals. This helps ensure that the system is fair and doesn't disproportionately burden certain segments of the population. Revenue allocation. The revenue generated from congestion pricing is typically used for transportation-related purposes. It can be invested in public transit improvements, road infrastructure upgrades, or initiatives that promote sustainable transportation options. Congestion pricing has been implemented in several cities around the world, including London, Stockholm, Singapore, and Milan. While it can be an effective tool for managing traffic congestion and reducing emissions, its implementation can be complex and requires careful planning, public acceptance, and consideration of potential equity implications. Dynamic, peak, or surge pricing. Dynamic pricing is a congestion pricing strategy where the price is not firmly set. Instead, it fluctuates based on changing circumstances, such as increases in demand at certain times, the type of customers being targeted, or evolving market conditions. Dynamic pricing strategies are especially common in business, transportation, and travel industries. Congestion pricing is a transportation strategy in which motorists are charged a fee for driving in congested urban areas during peak travel times. The idea behind congestion pricing is to encourage drivers to use public transportation or other modes of transportation that are less likely to cause traffic jams, reducing overall traffic congestion and improving air quality. It is often used as a way to fund improvements to public transportation systems. In some countries, cities have implemented congestion pricing systems, such as London, Stockholm, and Singapore. However, congestion pricing has been a controversial topic as it can be seen as a regressive tax that disproportionately affects low-income individuals who may have no choice but to drive during peak hours. Segmented pricing. This structure charges customers based on their willingness to pay more for a given service. Some may be willing to pay a premium for faster service, greater quality, or extra features, such as amenities. For example, a vendor may offer a product without a warranty at a low price, but if you want the same product to come with a warranty, then you pay a higher price. Or business travelers may be willing to pay a higher price for an airline ticket that allows them to fly midweek. On Broadway, theatergoers can pay for premium tickets that cost a great deal more than the list price. However, if those premium seats are still unsold close to the day of the show, anywhere within a week to a day before the performance, they are released by the box office and made available at standard prices. Congestion pricing refers to a system where fees are imposed on the vehicles for driving in heavily congested areas during peak hours. The primary goal of congestion pricing is to reduce traffic congestion and encourage the use of alternative modes of transportation. Here's how congestion pricing typically works. Designated zone. A specific area or zone is identified where congestion is a significant problem, usually in urban areas with high traffic volumes. Toll implementation. Electronic tolling systems are set up at entry points or within the designated zone. These systems use sensors or cameras to detect vehicles and charge a fee for entering or driving within the zone during peak periods. Pricing structure. The fees charged for entering or driving within the congested zone vary depending on the time of day, with higher fees during peak hours when traffic congestion is at its worst. The fees may also vary based on vehicle type, such as differentiating between private cars, taxis, or commercial vehicles. Payment and enforcement. Drivers typically pay the fees electronically through a transponder in their vehicles, or through online payment systems associated with license plate recognition. Non-compliance may result in penalties or fines. The main objectives of congestion pricing are: traffic reduction. By charging fees for driving in congested areas during peak hours, congestion pricing aims to discourage unnecessary vehicle trips and redistribute traffic to off-peak hours, alternative routes, or alternative modes of transportation. Revenue generation. The fees collected from congestion pricing can be used to fund transportation infrastructure improvements, public transit systems, or other initiatives aimed at reducing congestion and improving transportation options. Environmental benefits. By reducing traffic congestion, congestion pricing can contribute to a decrease in vehicle emissions, improving air quality and reducing carbon footprint. Congestion pricing has been implemented in various cities around the world, such as London, Stockholm, Singapore, and New York City. Its effectiveness depends on factors like the design of the system, public acceptance, availability of alternative transportation options, and proper planning and implementation. Peak user pricing. Peak user pricing, which is also called peak load or time of use pricing, is based on peak travel times and is common in transportation. For example, airline and train companies often charge a higher price to travel during rush hour on Monday through Friday than at other times. They may also have different prices for weekends or a trip that includes a weekday plus a weekend. Utility companies also set prices based on peak times. They may charge higher fees for phone calls made from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Supporters of congestion pricing argue that it can be an effective tool to reduce traffic congestion and the associated environmental and health impacts, such as air pollution and increased travel times. It can also generate revenue that can be invested in improving public transportation infrastructure. Critics argue that congestion pricing is unfair because it disproportionately affects low-income individuals who may have few alternative options to driving, such as those living in suburban areas or with jobs that require them to commute during peak hours. Additionally, Some argue that congestion pricing can further exacerbate social and economic inequalities by creating a system where wealthier individuals are able to pay the fees and access the city while low-income individuals are left with limited mobility options. There are also concerns about the implementation and enforcement of a congestion pricing system, such as the accuracy of tolling technology and the potential for increased traffic on alternative routes. Overall, congestion pricing is a complex issue with trade-offs between its potential benefits and drawbacks. Its success depends on careful planning, implementation, and ongoing evaluation to minimize negative impacts and maximize its effectiveness in reducing traffic congestion and improving urban mobility. Congestion pricing is considered a demand-side solution to regulate traffic driven by market economics. Charging a higher price is meant to make users aware of the consequences, increased congestion, that they impose on everyone else when they use a resource during peak demand. The theory posits that consumers will use, and waste, more of a resource that is free or negligible in price than an expensive one. By increasing the price of a resource, users' willingness to pay for that resource fuels a scarcity of that resource. Most economists agree about the economic viability of some form of road pricing to reduce traffic congestion, and congestion pricing has been effective in urban areas that have adopted the plan. However, not everyone considers it an equitable strategy. Critics say it leads to economic burdens faced by the communities that abut areas of congested traffic. Another criticism of congestion pricing is that it may harm low-income users more than other demographic groups, just as regressive tax systems do. I remain impartial on policy proposals and their efficacy. I presented arguments and concerns that are brought forward in the general discourse. Ultimately, it is up to policymakers to carefully assess the benefits and drawbacks of congestion pricing and determine whether it is the right strategy for their city or region. My role is to provide unbiased information and facilitate discussions around various policy proposals. Congestion pricing has been a topic of debate among policymakers and transportation experts for many years, and there are valid arguments both for and against it. Proponents of congestion pricing argue that it can reduce traffic congestion, improve air quality, and generate revenue for transportation infrastructure investments. They point to successful implementations of congestion pricing in cities like London, Stockholm, and Singapore, where traffic congestion has decreased and public transportation usage has increased. Opponents of congestion pricing argue that it could disproportionately impact low-income and middle-class commuters who cannot afford to pay the fees. They also express concern about the potential for businesses and industries to suffer, as transportation costs may increase and lead to higher prices for goods and services. Ultimately, the decision to implement congestion pricing should be based on a comprehensive analysis of the benefits and drawbacks, including potential impacts on equity, economic development, and environmental sustainability. Policymakers must weigh these factors and engage in open and transparent discussions with affected communities before moving forward with such a policy. Congestion pricing is a policy strategy that charges drivers a fee for driving in congested areas or during peak hours. The purpose of congestion pricing is to reduce traffic congestion, decrease air pollution, and improve transportation equity. The fees can vary depending on the time of day, the type of vehicle, and the location, with the aim of encouraging drivers to shift their travel time or mode of transportation to avoid high traffic times and routes. Congestion pricing has been implemented in cities such as London, Stockholm, and Singapore and has been found to be effective in reducing traffic congestion while also generating revenue for transportation investments. Congestion pricing refers to a system of charging drivers a fee for using certain roads or highways during peak traffic hours. The purpose of congestion pricing is to reduce traffic congestion and improve traffic flow by encouraging drivers to shift their travel times, use alternative routes, or modes of transportation. The fees charged for congestion pricing are typically higher during peak hours and lower during off-peak hours. Congestion pricing has been implemented in several cities worldwide, including London, Stockholm, Singapore, and New York City. Critics of congestion pricing argue that it places a burden on low-income drivers who may have no alternative transportation options. However, proponents argue that the benefits of congestion pricing, including reducing air pollution and improving the overall quality, outweigh the costs. Overall, congestion pricing is a controversial topic, but it has proven to be effective in reducing traffic congestion and improving traffic flow in several cities. It is important to carefully consider the impact on all drivers, especially low-income ones, and to ensure that alternative transportation options are available. Congestion pricing may not be the perfect solution, but it can be a useful tool in managing traffic and reducing the negative effects of traffic congestion. Congestion pricing is a transportation policy that involves charging drivers a fee for using certain roads or areas during peak traffic hours. The goal of congestion pricing is to reduce traffic congestion and improve air quality by incentivizing drivers to change their travel behavior, such as shifting their driving time, mode, or route, or choosing to carpool or use public transit. The fee may vary depending on factors such as time of day, vehicle type or emission level, and distance traveled. Congestion pricing has been implemented in various cities around the world, including London, Stockholm, Singapore, and New York City. The most obvious benefit of implementing congestion pricing is that it controls congestion on the roads, thereby reducing stress and delays. If drivers are charged additional tolls to enter certain parts of a city, then they'll be less likely to use their own cars on the road and may turn to public transport instead. Similarly, utility companies can curb usage during peak times for services such as water and electricity. Higher prices lead to an increase in revenue. Money collected from tolls can be used for road and public transport improvement, which gives commuters other options for transit to and from the city. Companies involved in ride-sharing and travel can see a boost in their bottom line. Congestion pricing helps to reduce pollution and the consumption of energy. Pulling cars off the road means fewer exhaust fumes. Charging more for electricity when resources are already strained during peak times can influence consumers to spread out their usage to other times. Critics of congestion pricing argue that it puts a heavy burden on people who drive and may financially impact those who fall into lower income ranges more than others. Just like regressive taxes, congestion pricing ends up taking more of their income compared with those who have higher incomes. Because congestion pricing discourages people from activities such as driving, it could hurt businesses in certain parts of the city. That's because public transit may not be an option for some people. If they are forced to pay more to use their own vehicles, then they may choose not to go into those areas at all and instead shop elsewhere. Although it may increase revenue, the cost to oversee and administer congestion pricing plans can be hefty. Authorities may need to pay for new technology and salaries for new workers, not to mention billing and other ways to account for those who evade. Thank you for watching the video and subscribe the channel.